This violence has got to stop. We were inches away from losing an officer.
A dramatic scene unfolding in a North Spokane neighborhood yesterday. Two men shooting out a car window as they drove down the street. One officer was shot twice. Another feared for her life. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here for KREM 2 News at 4. I'm Whitney Ward. We have team coverage on this tonight. KREM 2's Janelle Finch has been on the scene all day today talking with neighbors. Amanda Rowley has just gotten out of court where the suspects made their first appearances. So we start now with Amanda. What did you learn today?
Well, Whitney, we just learned this afternoon from Spokane Police Department that the Spokane police officer who was shot twice on Sunday afternoon has now been released from the hospital and recovering. Now, he suffered gunshot wounds to the head and leg, but he is now home and recovering. Now, police did arrest two suspects relating to this drive-by shooting on Sunday, and both appeared in court this afternoon. They're identified as Ray Winecoop and Isaac Ott. They both face multiple charges, including first-degree attempted murder. Now, they both also have prior felony convictions for charges ranging from robbery to theft. In fact, I confirmed with Washington Department of Corrections that at the time of Ott's arrest yesterday, he was serving a 51-month sentence for robbery and was put on work release. Now, we learned from court documents that after the shooting was reported near Garland Avenue, the suspect vehicle was following a police patrol car in the area. Now, that officer tried to prevent them from getting too close for fear that they would shoot at her. Then another officer, identified by SPD as Officer Chris Honaker, reached the area, and that is when court documents say the suspects shot at him from the car. Now, he was hit again in the leg and the head. Now, we also received a copy of scanner traffic from the moment when the officer alerted dispatch that he was hit. Now, we got this audio from Broadcastify. It's an online source that publicly shares dispatch conversations with responding emergency personnel. Take a listen.
Copy, officer down, carrying Empire, officer down, carrying Empire.
Now, I asked the Spokane Police Department how the community can support Officer Honaker in his recovery. Officer Nick Briggs, spokesperson for the police department, told me a simple hello or voicing your support to an officer you may see on the street goes a long way. He says these incidents are tough on all officers, so just hearing that support from the community really goes a long way. Reporting from the Spokane County Courthouse, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. And yesterday's shooting played out over 4 blocks in that North Spokane neighborhood. Janelle Finch has been there at the scene talking with neighbors about what they saw this weekend. Janelle?
Whitney, homeowners here in North Spokane tell me this neighborhood sees a lot of car traffic, minor drug activity, and the occasional police car driving by. So when yesterday's drive-by shooting happened here at Perry and Empire, neighbors say they were shocked by the amount of police activity, but not surprised Spokane's increasing violence has made it to their doorsteps. North Spokane residents say that the neighborhood is pretty quiet. People say when there are gunshots, they're usually heard in the distance. Yesterday's drive-by shooting that injured a Spokane police officer changed that story for this neighborhood. Suddenly, shots were fired outside the home of Linda Jenks. Jenks says she's a Spokane native and lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. She says drive-by shootings are becoming too common, and increased violence makes her change the way she sees the city.
At some point, you become numb to it. I think everybody does until it hits your neighborhood, and then it hits home, and then you go back to reality and start thinking, how do I protect myself, my neighbors, you know, and be more aware of your surroundings.
Jenks says the situation makes her rethink her relationship with her neighbors. She says after yesterday's drive-by shooting, she wants to bring the neighborhood together to prevent these situations in the future. Jenks and other neighbors say they don't feel unsafe in the neighborhood. They say drug activity is more of a neighborhood threat than gun violence. Neighbors say gunshots were heard around 2 p.m. and officials stayed on scene until 10 p.m. last night. After the two suspects were arrested, Spokane police wanted to let the community know that there were no other active threats at the time of investigation, and the community didn't need to worry. Live in Spokane, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
All right, Janelle. Thank you very much. And Officer Chris Honaker, who was the one injured in that shooting, is a 27-year veteran of the Spokane Police Department. This isn't actually the first time that he has been shot at by a suspect. Take a look. This is video from December of 2009. It was a carjacking and shooting suspect that leaned out a car window and shot at his patrol vehicle. 2 years later, the suspect in that shooting, Tony Dawson, pleaded guilty to assault and robbery. He was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Honaker has many assignments in the department. He served as a canine handler and a member of the Tactical and Chemical Response Team for SPD. Again, he has been released from the hospital tonight and is expected to recover. We, of course, are continuing to track this story. We'll have more information coming up tonight on KREM 2 News at 5 and 6. And for the latest, you can always go to KREM.com. All right, let's switch gears and turn to our other big story, which is just how hot it is out there right now. A weather advisory or heat advisory is in place until later this evening. The high temps, of course, we know can be dangerous for those who are going to be spending a lot of extended time outside. So we want to turn straight to our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legoo, for a look at what we can expect over the next few hours and, of course, into the rest of our week.
You know, Wendy, it's one of those days that's going to be hot right up until sunset.
Okay,
so,
figures.
Yeah, when it comes to walking the dog, me personally, I just kind of wait until that sun goes down behind the neighbors' homes. That'll be in the 8 o'clock hour, and then that pavement should cool off pretty quickly. But keep in mind, it is still hot outside right now. We sit at 91 degrees. 91. It's a scorcher. No question about that. 91 here in Spokane, 92 in Coeur d'Alene, 86 up in Sandpoint. Everywhere is hot. You move out into central Washington, it's temps in the mid to upper 90s. For that reason, we have those heat advisories that last until 11 p.m. tonight. So they went into effect at 11 a.m. through 11 p.m. And the reason they actually expire or move out is because we have the chance of a rumble of thunder as we get a little sweep of cooler air that moves in. So overnight, our temperatures fall back into the 60s, but 60s is about it. It is going to be a warm one overnight. Tomorrow, thankfully not as hot, but we're still talking widespread 80s across the region. And just a couple of days ago, I would have said 80s is still quite warm as well. Coming up, we're talking a cool day in the forecast, and I'll let you know what this weekend is shaping up to look like.
Sounds good, Jeremy. Thank you. Well, today the U.S. Supreme Court says a Western Washington football coach has a right to pray with his team on the school's football field. In a historic decision released this morning by the U.S. Supreme Court, a majority of the justices said Coach Joe Kennedy should not have lost his job after leading post-game prayers. Kennedy's lawyers had argued no students were ever pressured to join him in prayer, and Justice Gorsuch noted in his opinion there was no evidence of coercion in the record. Coach Kennedy reacted to that ruling today.
You know, I'm still in shock. I'm just so grateful that this long, hard fought is finally over and we won. And thank God and everybody that supported me throughout this. I mean, it's just great news for the entire nation.
The High Court initially had declined to hear Kennedy's case back in 2019. That was before the conservative majority was seated on the bench. This latest ruling from the court moved the needle further toward expanding individual and corporate religious rights and narrowing the separation between church and state. Washington Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Reichdahl reacted to that ruling today. In a statement, he said Washington State's long history of civil rights and religious freedom will not be altered by this ruling. He continued saying students and staff will remain free of any sanctioned religious beliefs or practices in the course of their public education. Now, the ramifications from the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, that's still being felt as lawmakers all across the country are now moving to either restrict or protect access to abortions. Tonight, Natalie Brand has details from outside the Supreme Court.
D.C. police are on standby for more protests this week after Friday's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade ignited demonstrations nationwide. In Jackson, Mississippi, the city at the center of the Supreme Court case that's changed history, the abortion clinic known as the Pink House says it will provide services as long as the law allows.
We've lived so long with this privilege of being able to make this choice, and we're not ready to give it up yet.
We've always been a pro-life state, but now we get to actually live it out.
Friday's 5-4 decision by the conservative court returns the issue of abortion to individual states.
8 states had laws that banned abortion as soon as the decision was handed down, and more states could soon follow within the next few months.
The people of Oklahoma have decided through their elected leaders, and the governor signed legislation making abortion illegal in the state of Oklahoma from the moment of conception.
Highlighting what will become a patchwork of state laws, 16 Democratic states and Washington, D.C. have laws that protect abortion rights. In Michigan, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer is at odds with her Republican-controlled legislature.
With the current legislature that I have, there is no common ground, which is the sad thing. They've already introduced legislation to criminalize and throw nurses and doctors in jail.
According to a new CBS News poll, nearly 60% of Americans surveyed disapprove of the Supreme Court's decision, and 2/3 of women disapprove. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
13 states are now working to increase protections on abortion care. Governor Jay Inslee in Washington laid out a plan this weekend to make this a safe state, he said. He says he'll push for an amendment to the state constitution to guarantee abortion as a right in Washington. He will also be signing an order to Washington State Patrol to not cooperate with law enforcement from other states who may attempt to prosecute those seeking an abortion. Inslee also pledged a $1 million investment to enhance the state's healthcare resources to prepare for the influx of those seeking an abortion from other states. In the meantime, legal action is already being taken to block other states' trigger laws. In Idaho, for example, Planned Parenthood is now suing to block that trigger law, which bans or will ban most abortions within a 30-day time period. The legislature passed it 2 years ago in case Roe v. Wade were to ever be overturned. It's set to take effect 30 days after the Supreme Court's official judgment, likely sometime in August. Now, another Idaho law passed earlier this year allowing people to sue providers for doing an abortion, also facing legal challenges now. That has a state Supreme Court hearing coming up in early August. And today, a Louisiana judge blocked law enforcement of a statewide abortion ban. The ban took place after the Supreme Court decision on Friday, and one of the state's abortion clinics sued, arguing the ban violated its due process rights under the state's constitution and lacked safeguards to prevent arbitrary enforcement. A hearing has been set for July 8th to decide further on the enforcement of that ban. And we will continue to bring you updates regarding this landmark decision. Remember, for any of the information that we have brought to you already, all you have to do is text the word court to 509-448-2000 and we'll send a link right to your phone. And you can always go to KREM.com. Still to come here on KREM 2 News at 4 tonight, the Chiefs starting a new chapter today as they named a new head coach. We'll have more on that. Plus, thousands flocking to Coeur d'Alene this weekend for Ironman. We've got highlights from the race when we come right back.